It's, part of it is political, but on the field, it's not political. You can't buy speed. You can't buy endurance, right? Your rich uncle can't get you a spot in the Olympic final. None of that's going to happen. All there are talent, preparation, execution, start line, finish line, stopwatch. Ultimate level playing field, ultimate meritocracy. And what does white supremacy tell us about level playing fields? That white people will come out ahead most of the time. But when you look at high-level running, ultimate level playing field, who comes out ahead most of the time? Black people from Jamaica, black people from the US, from St. Kitts, from Trinidad, Barbados, Kenya, Ethiopia, Eritrea, Cote d'Ivoire, everywhere. So white supremacy really struggles with this, right? Because this runs absolutely counter to what white supremacy has told us about level playing fields. And this is what gives birth to this obsession, right, with how and why black athletes succeed in this search for secrets, in the search to sequence the genome and find out what their success, the success of Usain Bolt, tells us about an entire country full of people, as if the fastest person in the world is somehow regular. Like, we don't expect Michael Phelps to tell us about all white Americans, yet somehow Usain Bolt has to be this proxy for all Jamaicans and indeed all black people in this half of the world. And the real world just doesn't work that way, but white supremacy is struggling to answer this. And this is where these sports stereotypes, and in our business, these sports cliches come from, right? This is where you have the idea of the hardworking white athlete, gritty, scrappy, son of a coach, really intelligent, and then the natural black athlete who doesn't work hard. He's not smart, he's instinctive, right? Because instinct you can't help. Like, breathing is an instinct I can't help, I'm not thinking about that. But if it's the white guy's like, ooh, look how he uses his lungs, that's great, that's intelligent. Learn that from his dad, right? So this is where we are, and this is a problem in our business. So what does any of this have to do with Copernicus? What was Copernicus' big discovery? Heliocentric theory, right? Copernicus was the guy that figured out that it's not the Earth at the center of the solar system, it's the sun. Because before Copernicus came along, everyone put the Earth at the center of the solar system, and you learned what you could learn about the solar system with the Earth in the middle, and Copernicus said, guys, we're never going to learn everything we can learn as long as we have the Earth at the center of the solar system. We got to put something else at the center of the solar system. Right? So I would argue that we've long since passed that point with sports writing. And as long as we're putting, again, white attributes, white attitudes, white norms, white hang-ups, white fragility at the center of the stories that we're telling about black runners, black basketball players, Latino baseball players, we're always going to be limited in what we can learn. Always. And so the time has come, well, the time has passed, and there are a lot of good writers doing this, working to center black stories, center black stories, Latino stories, black voices, Latino voices, Asian voices, indigenous voices, right? So where does this arise from? Where does this come from? Part of the reason is that newsrooms don't look like this room, right? This room is very diverse. When you get into newsrooms, there was a study from the University of Central Florida, I can't remember the department, it's Richard Lapchick's group, that found in the United States, 92%, nearly 92% of sports editors, 85% of sports reporters are white. Right? Meanwhile, the NFL, 70% black. The NBA, 75% black. Major League Baseball, 28% Latino, 8.5% African American, 1.5% Asian. So we have this demographic gap, right? Which gives birth, that gives birth to these stories that lets white supremacy get in between reporters and the truth. So how do we solve this problem? Part of the problem, part of the solution, self-evidently, is to diversify newsrooms, right? And one way to do that, and I might disagree with Derek Kent a little bit here, is to start paying interns, right? There's a lot of places in our business that want you to work for free. Yeah, clap it up, to get a foot in the door, right? But if all your interns are working for free, or many of your interns are working for free, you're going to get a lot of the same type of intern, and that type of intern is going to be the person whose parents who can afford for them to work for free while their expenses are paid, because I know I could never work 40 hours a week for nothing. That was never a consideration, right? So you're going to get a lot of the same type of person, and on this continent still to this day, that portion of the population is predominantly white. And so these are the ideas and the norms and the frames of reference that you're going to get. But at the same time, even before diversity, it's a question of developing the ability and the skill and the willingness to report across cultural lines, right? And see these people you're writing about as human beings, not as stereotypes, not as props, not as blank screens onto which you project your hang-ups, right? I just finished writing a story. It'll be in the Toronto Star tomorrow about a boxer who's from Chechnya. His coach is from Kyrgyzstan. They speak Russian. I don't speak Russian, but that's not an excuse for me to go out and boil these guys down to stereotypes and tell a paper-thin story about them. If you're a professional, you're a professional. And if your job in your profession, your craft is telling true stories, then you have to do that. And that doesn't mean, that means the exact opposite of relying on the safety net of cliches, right? The cliche of the hot-blooded Latin baseball player, right? The cliche of the natural black athlete, the cliche of the hard-working but limited white guy who gets over on his grit. Because if you try hard enough, you can beat Usain Bolt. No, you can't. You can't. And I made this point to a journalism class one time, that you had to dump the cliches, and this kid in the back, he puts his hands up, and he says, well, if I can't use cliches, what can I use? He sounded so crestfallen, right? Like I had taken a tool from him. And I said, man, no, I'm not trying to disarm you, right? I'm trying to liberate you, because the cliches, that's not a tool. That's just like a ball and a chain behind you. I'm liberating you. Because once you dump the cliches and get rid of the safety net, you know what you have left? You have the truth. And true stories are the business we're in. And that's been my TEDx talk.